Research has shown that most people who come here for the first time is purely because of the monster.
People that come up here, I'm sure they're all hoping to see something. They would love to see something.
The main thing that they're looking for is either the head and neck or the hump.
For 1,400 years, people have talked of a mysterious creature living in the dark depths of Loch Ness. Actual sightings are rare, but that will soon change.
Our job is creating illusion, and the Loch Ness Monster is another one of those archetypal myths that would be great to have a go at, really.
There have always been the believers
It's something that's alive.
and the skeptics.
It's a rock.
But is it possible, using state-of-the-art animatronics, to build a monster that will convince them all? We challenged a crack team of experts in movie special effects to do just that, and followed them as they struggled to turn the legend of the Loch Ness Monster into reality. An industrial estate in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire, 500 miles south of Loch Ness. Behind these anonymous doors, strange beasts lurk. Jez Harris makes monsters for the movies. Everything from dinosaurs to dragons, even werewolves. But he and his team now face their toughest test yet. To build a creature so lifelike it can pull off the ultimate Loch Ness Monster hoax.
This is going to be quite a challenge, this project. If you're in the studio, the team around you makes everything much more controllable because it's just for the camera. But this time we're out in the middle of a loch and we've got to keep everything secret. So the whole team getting the creature in the water, moving it under the water, raising it up and performing live is going to be tricky. And then it's going to disappear below the water and no one's to be seen around it. So it's quite a challenge, quite a challenge.
Previous hoaxes have had it easy. With no witnesses, they've used everything from car tires to bales of hay, taken a photo and presented it as proof. Jez and his team face a far tougher test. To build a creature so lifelike that it will convince people they are actually seeing the monster with their own eyes. It's never been done before. They're basing their design on a Plesiosaurus, an awesome predatory reptile that lived on Earth millions of years ago. They've nicknamed their monster Lucy. But there's just one more small problem. They've got just 14 weeks to bring Lucy to life. They have to be in the loch before the tourist season ends in September, or there'll be no one to see it. This is where Lucy will make her public debut in a few months' time. Loch Ness was formed during the Ice Age over 10,000 years ago. It's Britain's biggest lake, 23 miles long and over 900 feet deep. Deeper than the North Sea and pitch black from just a few feet down. An eerie place. And the perfect habitat for a monster that's become a legend around the world. For some, watching the loch has become a way of life. Adrian Shine and Dick Rayner have between them spent nearly 80 years investigating the monster phenomenon.
The Loch Ness Monster is probably the most popular monster story in the Western world.
People say they come to see the scenery, but secretly they're hoping they'll see something strange in the water, I'm sure.
Loch Ness has features which certainly make it more than likely you will see monsters of some sort or another, because it has its own illusions. The water is very dark and peaty, and the hills close in on it. And so you have large bands of reflection. It is a vast body of water.
Operating a 15-foot, 3/4-ton robotic model in the loch without being rumbled is going to be tricky and potentially dangerous. To help them, the team have recruited James Wakeford to mastermind the operation. He's an ex-Marine commando and a specialist in underwater and covert operations. Perfectly qualified for the difficult mission ahead.
It's one of those things with me, the moment something gets quite exciting, the moment it sort of starts to bring back all the feelings of my past background in the military, all those elements of, you know, doing things and trying to get away with them, and you know, it was quite exciting. It's not going to be simple. And also we're testing something that's never been done before. That's exciting. You know, it's a challenge really, isn't it? I mean, that's the challenge of it, which, you know, is getting me going.
To help mastermind the operation, James has brought in an old friend, South African Michael Thorpe, a professional diver who's used to diving with sharks. But that is nothing compared to the dangers they will face in the murky, deep waters of Loch Ness.
If there's an emergency, it's going to be getting deeper and darker very quickly. And of course, as we're going deeper, it's going to get colder too.
For the hoax to succeed, they'll need a secluded base by the loch where they can work unseen. James and Michael have heard about a holiday home that's available for rent exactly when they need it.
Well, here's a house, look at that. Beautiful.
And it is the best spot to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other options really. It has to.
And it is tucked away, it's perfect.
It is perfect.
9 weeks to go, and back in Aylesbury, the clock is ticking. Jez and his team are making good progress with Lucy the monster.
The original sculpture has been finished and we've made a mould of it. And when we take this apart, the original sculpture will be completely destroyed. But from this mould, we'll then make the outer form of the creature.
As you can see, you've got all the texture here from the original sculpture comes through onto the negative mould.
With the moulds complete, they're ready to be filled with a rubbery mixture. A few days later, and the moulds are broken open. It's the moment of truth.
So this should be exciting.
Oh, look at that.
So what do you think?
Amazing.
Soft, warm and rubbery. Wow. Do you know what it is really weird? Is this because it's warm?
Yeah. It is.
That's very strange. Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. And if I saw that from from any distance, you'd just be completely convinced. I mean, there's just no way you wouldn't be, you know?
Just imagine that coming out. I would shit myself.
With Lucy fast becoming a reality, the team now face a major problem. How are they going to maneuver her in the water without being seen? There's now just 7 weeks to go before the man-made monster is due in Loch Ness. Work on the model, nicknamed Lucy, has been going well, but it's slipping behind schedule because one vital piece of equipment is weeks overdue. Today, it finally arrives.
We've been waiting quite a few weeks now for it, and there's so much we've got to do with it. Time's running out, so a bit of pressure on.
There we go.
Quite exciting now.
It is, actually.
The submarine, bought unseen on the internet, will be attached underneath Lucy to move her through the water. But it's hardly the high-tech piece of kit they expected.
It's pretty primitive, to be honest. Very basic. I didn't expect it to be this rough inside.
I mean, you know, it's sort of pieces sort of lying around and
Pretty basic.
And there's more bad news.
whoa, that's a major little crack. That's not a little bit of filler. Fair bit of work, I'd say, Jez.
The more they look, the more problems they find. Until they're fixed, nothing can go ahead. And they're due in Loch Ness in just a month and a half. Time is running out. The team are well aware that if they fail, it's not just their reputation on the line. Because there's a long and illustrious tradition of Loch Ness hoaxes to live up to. In 1933, the Daily Mail sponsored a big game hunter, Marmaduke Wetherall, to track down the elusive monster.
Loch Ness, on which the eyes of the world are focused, the reputed haunt of a prehistoric monster or monsters, and the newly found adventure ground of modern Gullivers. Mr. Wetherall, the big game hunter, and his party, who have been hot on the trail of the monster for some time, set out from Foyers to comb the lake.
Although the fearless hunter found no monster, he did discover strange footprints on the shore of the loch. But it was soon exposed as a con. Wetherall had made them himself using a hippo's foot. His scam gave birth to a new Scottish tradition, hoaxing the Nessie hunters. And this picture is the most famous hoax of all. The so-called surgeon's photo, supposedly taken in 1934 by a Harley Street doctor on holiday. It caused a sensation, and for the next 60 years, people argued over its authenticity. Until 1994, when the truth was finally revealed.
We found the man who did it. His name was Christian Sperling. He was the stepson of Marmaduke Wetherall, who was a flamboyant hoaxer of the 1930s. And he'd made a small model based on a submarine model. And it had been photographed just a few feet out in the water. And it's a beautiful picture. It's an absolute classic. And I think it will always be the Loch Ness Monster, even though we actually dismiss it as evidence.
But Jez and his team can't rely on a grainy photo as proof of their sighting. They want to engineer a live mass sighting that lasts for minutes and will survive the scrutiny of anyone's camera.
Well done, guys. This is really, really good.
However, with the deadline looming, their plan is looking harder and harder to achieve. Finally, with 5 weeks to go, at last there's some good news for James, who is in charge of the diving operation, and his colleague, Michael. Weeks behind schedule, the sub has finally been fixed.
She's done, eh?
She's just come back.
And she now has a new camouflage paint job.
Wow. Really looks suitable for covert op now, eh?
Yeah, that's nice.
Definitely the colour.
Yeah.
All they have to do now is learn how to operate it. They've come to a lake near the workshop for lessons from expert submariner Alan Whitfield.
Morning, I'm Alan. Nice to meet you.
James, how you going?
I'm James. Good morning.
With James as diving supervisor, it's down to Michael to pilot the sub. Alan is going to put him through his paces.
Okay, looks good. Okay, so you've got control. Well, first of all, just have a little play, and then we'll have a check. Just going to go on this. There we go.
Good to see it working, huh? See it actually moving along. Hope that's not full speed.
Is that propeller turning? Can you see?
Yes, yes.
Look at Michael's little face. Looking out the window.
For a man who's tackled most diving challenges, Michael appears apprehensive. The sub is open-bottomed to allow a quick escape. But once Lucy's fixed on top, there'll be no room for error. The sub will have to be totally controllable to allow Michael to hover just a few feet below the surface.
Now try a little bit of thrust down.
Okay, a little bit of thrust down.
Just take it down a little. Keep thrusting. Well, actually, we thrust a bit too long there.
Yeah.
Now if you look, we're coming up. So thrust down again.
It is very, very tricky to control the buoyancy on that thing. Pretty frustrating, actually. I think it's going to be very difficult to hover at 5 or 6 feet.
She's just very, very delicate. She's so twitchy. You just have to put the tiniest bit of air in it and she just shoots the surface.
It's going to be very, very difficult. Not sure how we're going to do it, to be honest.
Back at Aylesbury, things are getting desperate. They've lost valuable time fixing the sub. There's still 2 weeks' worth of work to do on Lucy's animatronics. Trouble is, they have only 7 days before testing is due to start. The team will need to work round the clock to stand any chance of making it in time.
It's totally mad. It's a mad old business to be in at the best of times. But this particular event is quite mad. We've got an awful lot on our plate.
We've done strange things, but not quite like this one. It's going to be interesting.
Everyone's exhausted, and they know the real work hasn't even begun. A secret location somewhere in the west of England. This flooded quarry was once a high-security test site for the Ministry of Defence. It's where Lucy the Monster will rehearse her starring role. In just 3 weeks, she has to perform in Loch Ness. The pressure is now on James, in charge of the diving operations, and his dive master, Michael.
Yeah, it's looking quite good now, isn't it? It's looking more like the job as opposed to some little sort of funny sub. No, it's good. They've done a good job, actually, considering the time they had.
For the hoax to work, they have to make Lucy behave in the water like a real-life living creature. To help them, they've recruited a team of divers. Chris, Glenn, Ross, and Tooney. None of them have been told the true nature of their mission.